If a woman really wanted to insult a man, what could she say? She could call him weak and feminine. She could insult his sexual abilities. And she could call him a loser. I'm sure that no one, man or woman, enjoys being called a loser, but this insult hits especially hard for men because we are hardwired for competition. Remember back when you're a kid in school and how competitive you were with all the other boys? Who can run the fastest? Who can jump the furthest? Who has the most collectibles? Who's the best at this video game? Evolution crafted men to want to win, and it's no surprise why this particular trait was positively selected for, because men who had this obsession with winning and being the best would work harder and then become better and then naturally be more attractive to women. So what you see in society around you in all of the men is a kind of chronic paranoia. Gotta win, can't lose, must be a winner. Is this good for us? I mean, not really. There are some benefits because it pushes us to better and better achievements, which can improve our lives, but it's also not good to live with that kind of chronic tension. A lot of men have this almost constant anxiety, like a paranoia about, am I good enough? Am I succeeding in the world? But evolution doesn't really care about our happiness. It cares about reproduction. And so while you as an individual might be quite uncomfortable with all of this anxiety and tension about, am I losing? Am I winning? If your fear of being a loser motivates you to take action to become better so that you can become one of the winners, one of the men who does succeed in reproducing and passing your genes along, well then, from evolution's point of view, it's worth it. But I think this is one of the reasons why men commit suicide at a much higher rate than women do. Because for a man to fail, that's not really an option. Our worth is measured by our success. Women are different. They always have their biology to fall back on. They're the more valuable gender, if for no other reason than because eggs are rarer than sperm are. So even if a woman's life is falling apart and she's not succeeding in anything, she can always fall back on her identity as being a mother. Men are far more expendable. If we want to be worth something, then we better be contributing something. This is why the thought, I'm a loser, I have nothing to contribute, is so unbearable to men. Some of you might know the adult cartoon American Dad and the episode where Stan, the father, loses the big football game, and the way that he deals with the emotion of failure is he tries to commit suicide. And in the next scene, he's in the hospital and his son's like, don't you think that was a bit of an overreaction? Of course it's been exaggerated for comic effect, but it's funny because it hits close to a truth that we feel, that to fail as men, that's not really an option. To lose is so hurtful, so shameful that, yeah, something like suicide can seem like an option. I mean, hopefully nobody listening to this is tempted to go there, but I think as men, when we hear about those guys who are at the absolute bottom of society, you know, they're homeless, they've failed at everything that they've tried, and then they're contemplating suicide, even though we're obviously going to try and talk them out of it, as men, we can kind of get it. We sort of see where they're coming from. But here's where things get interesting, especially from a psychological perspective, because even if the reality of the situation is that you as an individual man are not a winner and that you are a loser, you have the capacity to rationalize your situation and kind of distort reality to preserve your self-esteem. The truth of the matter is that very few men actually possess the courage to look at reality directly, and if they are losing, if they are a loser at life, they're not going to admit that. They can't. It's too terrifying. So what you end up seeing is lots of men engaging in intellectual rationalizations, convincing themselves, no matter what the circumstances, that somehow, in some way, they're still a winner. Let's consider all of the different ways that men can interact with women. You've got the pickup artist guys who never settle down with a woman. They're just always sleeping around. They'll tell themselves that they're the real winners because they get to experience the constant novelty of new partners. They look at guys who are in relationships, who are stuck with one woman for the rest of their lives, and they pity them. They look down on them thinking, they had to settle for that because they don't have the game to be a player like me. And then you've got the monogamous guys who also feel like they're the winners because their relationships give them love, companionship, stability, children. They look at the player guys who never settle down with pity, and they think that they're the losers because, you know, they think, oh, how superficial and shallow that they're still stuck in that kind of lifestyle. They haven't yet experienced the kind of depth that a relationship can take you like I have. And then you've got guys who completely stay away from women altogether. They never date, they never have relationships, and they're also convinced that they're the winners. They say to themselves, I know how many problems women can bring to your life, and I'm smart enough to stay away from them. The losers are those men who are still chasing after women, chasing after relationships, because they're not brave enough to actually face the truth. On and on and on and on. Everybody thinks that they're right. They convince themselves that they're the winner and that their chosen strategy on how to engage with women is the correct one. I bet you right now that you, listening to this at the moment, you probably think that your chosen strategy for how to engage with women is the correct one. That you're the winner because you figured it out. I know that's what I think. I think that my system for engaging with women is the correct one. I'm not having a go at anybody because we all do this. I'm just pointing out how deeply ingrained this instinct is for men that we have to be the winners. We can't be losers. We can't psychologically cope with that. And so if we sense that we're losing the game, then we're going to play a different game. We'll play the sleeping around game, the long-term relationships game, the avoid women altogether game, whatever game that we can win at. This aspect of psychology absolutely fascinates me because it doesn't seem to matter how dark things get or how obvious the feedback is that you might be a loser. The mind wants to keep you safe, and so it's going to work overtime to protect you and to reinterpret the facts of reality in such a way so that you're a winner. I want to read a quote from another adult cartoon. This one's called BoJack Horseman. And in this scene, he's lying in bed, his life's a mess, he's an absolute alcoholic, and you're listening to his internal monologue. Piece of shit. Stupid piece of shit. You're a real stupid piece of shit. But I know I'm a piece of shit. That at least makes me better than all of the pieces of shit that don't know that they're pieces of shit. Again, it's funny because it hits home to this truth that as his mind starts to spiral darker and darker and darker, at some point it panics and it has to pull itself out there in some way to reinterpret his situation as though he's still a winner. So yes, as awful and horrible as he may be, he's at least self-aware of how terrible he is, which makes him better than those people who are deluded about how awful they are. But do you see the danger in this? How problematic it is if you're constantly reframing everything? If you're always interpreting reality in a way that's positive for you, you might be able to temporarily protect your self-esteem, but you're not growing, you're not learning anything. Real, measurable, personal growth does not occur in the imagination. It can't. It can only occur in reality. And so if you're not in touch with reality, you're not growing. Simply thinking positive thoughts about yourself is not going to help. It's just like useless affirmations. I'm really successful. I'm really well liked. I'm really attractive to women. I'm really good at my job. These thoughts won't help you if they're not actually true. They're just going to give you a false expectation of yourself. And then when reality comes to call, you're going to be completely unprepared and it's going to punish you. Self-esteem is not something that you can fake. It has to be based in reality. It's action first and then self-esteem. So what do you do if you genuinely feel like a loser? If you look at your life, you look at your job, your friends, your dating life, your self-esteem, and it's not good, how do you handle that? My advice is to acknowledge it, accept that. This is where you are right now. This is reality. It's so important to accept reality as it currently is, that right now you are losing, because unless you acknowledge reality, you'll never start to make changes. This is especially important for young guys in their early 20s, because at that stage of life, you're kind of at the bottom of the pyramid. There's still so much for you to learn. So you need to humble yourself and accept that that's where you are right now. At some point, you might be the man at the top of the pyramid. That's awesome. But you're going to have to earn your way there. Listen more than you speak, work hard, keep your head down, and your time will come. But at all times, you need to be absolutely vigilant and self-aware of this dangerous tendency that we have as men to always reinterpret everything to frame ourselves as the winner. I know that it's nice to think of yourself as a winner, and you want that feeling, but trust me when I say that that feeling is so much better when it's actually based in reality, when you genuinely are winning, rather than just being delusional and constantly reframing all of your failures as some secret convoluted victory. If you are losing, just admit it, but take courage in the fact that you are actually facing that head on, which is more than can be said for 90% of the male population. Most guys are not brave enough to actually acknowledge their current circumstances. They can't face that. And if you can, then you've already taken a really important step towards self-growth and self-awareness. You're already on your path towards winning. Should we ignore our biology and ignore a woman's appearance when choosing a partner? What is the meaning of life? And what are my tips for getting over a breakup? All of these topics and many more are covered in exclusive videos available to my Patreon page. This includes my latest video, Is it possible for men and women to ever be friends? In this video, I talk about the danger of glossing over the complexities of male-female friendships without acknowledging the biological factors that underlie those dynamics. And I also talk about the dangers of overcorrection, of assuming that every interaction and every relationship has to be sexual simply because of different genders. I talk about the many circumstances where women can be your friends and there should be no underlying conflict, as well as all of the benefits that female friendships bring into your life. If you're curious to know more about the dangers and benefits of female friends, then I highly recommend you check out this video. For every video that I post here on YouTube, I post an additional bonus video on my Patreon page. That means that at the moment, you're only seeing half of the total content that I create. If you would like access to the other half, then please go and sign up at my Patreon page. It's just a $5 a month subscription and you get instant access to a whole bunch of exclusive content. It's a wonderful way to support the channel and I would love to see you over there.